So I'm going to tell you a little bit of who I am in order for you to understand my approach and my understanding of teaching and education. So I am undocumented. I'm a double Bruin, so I came here for undergrad and graduate school. I'm a sociologist, I think, like at my core, and very much into activism. And that's my family. That's my sister and my parents. My parents are also undocumented immigrants from Mexico, and my sister is she was born in the United States, so we have a mixed status family, and so that really politicized me at a young age to understand my life and my positionality in this country. Something else is that my parents are street vendors, and so that also put another layer of criminalization into my understanding of myself and my world. This is my child, my 5-year-old, and so before I go on, so my mom really pushed education on me, and so this image is something that she used to make me recite every single day from the time she found it, which is when I was in 2nd grade, until I was about 16, and I passed it up in 3rd grade. But it says, the more you read, the more you know. The more you know, the smarter you grow. The smarter you grow, the stronger your voice. When speaking your mind or making a choice. So she really pushed reading on me, and reading was something that I was traumatized with at the 3rd grade because of the reading test. And so I recall like having anxiety whenever I have to read out loud, especially now as a teacher where you're the one who's trying to tell your students like, no, it's okay if you mess up, like I got you. But still, like I get that anxiety, and so making sure that my students feel reassured that I'm also feeling that anxiety is something that's really important. And so because I had such a strong understanding of education as like the only method of empowerment that I had access to, I find it very personal, and I take it very hard if I'm doing a poor job. And so understanding the context that my students are living in as a sociologist and as someone who grew up in those conditions, it's really difficult to cope with the idea that my students are going to struggle. It's difficult to cope with the idea that I'm part of a system that has been historically traumatizing and hegemonic and really hurtful to our communities, right? And so the stakes for me are incredibly high, and this is not a job, this is like my life. And so it's very difficult to just go into teaching and to know that I'm not gonna be like changing absolutely everything, and that not all my students are gonna do as best as I want for them and as they deserve. And so for me, that's a very difficult situation to be in, and something that really makes it hard for me to literally sleep at night, right? And so teaching saves lives, and at least for me, I think that like my teachers and my family is really what just legitimized my identity and my struggle. So these are my teachers from high school, and in high school, because of my understanding of things when I was younger, it really, I was very resistant, but not always in like the best or most helpful way to me. So my teacher, he's now Dr. Alamo. He's actually a TEP alum. He taught me about the Black Panthers, and he showed me ways that I could be civically engaged and use my knowledge and my voice to empower my community, and how all of that was possible through education. And so that's something that I was really interested in. And still looking at my colleagues or my classmates who weren't doing the same things and were still engaging in destructive, like self-destructive and not the best stuff for our community, right? It was really hard for me, and it's hard for me now too. And so I remember having this like understanding, like, you are teaching us for us to be empowered, and so this is something that I want for my kids too. And so again, this is like how education gave me a voice. And so after I took his class, I was like the social justice warrior of the school, and that was what my friend drew when I was in high school. And so now these are my kids. This is my 3rd period AP US history class, and so I teach again at Santee, which is 100% students of color, 94% Latinx, 6% Black, and there are incredible, there's so much wealth and just amazingness in my kids. Um, they're just so amazing. And so, like, I don't know if y'all can see it because it's pretty small from over there, but all my kids are smiling. They're always so happy and they're always so just amazing and brilliant, but they have so much trauma. And so it's really, really difficult for me to cope with the idea that I'm like walking around and I see a student with their head down, like, hey, what's going on? And then they tell me things like, I haven't seen my mom in 3 weeks. I don't know what's going on. I really miss my mom. Or my brother didn't come home last night and I don't know where he is and I'm really, really scared. After they did a presentation. So they're still doing all these amazing things and they're still coming through as students, but they're still dealing with all this trauma. And when I bring up statistics like PTSD rates in South Central, they're like, what do you mean we're traumatized? And I'm like, well, think about like the experiences that you've had. And then they tell me about these horrible traumatic experiences that they saw last week or the way that they were run, like chased by police. And so me trying to teach them about history, right? And trying to tell them about the relevance of the Constitution might not seem like the most urgent thing sometimes. And so I need to learn to cope with the ideas of being there for them, humanizing myself, and making sure that they feel empowered like I was, and also being able to deliver curriculum so that I'm not causing a disservice to my kids. And so all of these things put together, to me, feel very, very stressful. And I felt it last year as well. So I surveyed a lot of teachers of color that I felt were invested in my education, which you all saw previously. And I asked them how they managed to stay in the field for so long, knowing every single day, right, that it was stressful and that it was emotionally draining sometimes, right? Especially when students are saying things like, why do you believe in me if I don't believe in myself, right? And so that just like, it really does break my heart. So I wanted to know like how they were able to sustain themselves. Again, aside from like going to the restroom and eating and sleeping. And so what I found was to love and support each other. So going back to like a lot of the ethnic studies stuff that y'all are gonna learn is that our communities heal each other. And a lot of it is through activism, right? And so last year, this mujer chingona over here, that's one of my students, organized the East LA walkouts after Trump was elected president. And so I found that it was incredibly like beautiful and inspiring to support the students and absolutely like everything that they needed support with. So they felt under attack, right? And they very much are, our communities are. And so making sure that they felt heard and that their voices again were legitimized. I saw them become more invested in like their education and also like in their communities and feel like an ownership and pride in who they are. And to me, that was like, it brought me alive. So it was, yes, I was tired and there was all this work from TEP, y'all don't even know. But just seeing my kids like this and making like a lot of other teachers were saying, they're just gonna walk away, they're gonna go home or they're gonna go ditch. And all of the adults were around, you know, we were trying to make sure that they were safe. And none of them left. Like all the students that met up at Plaza de la Raza made it to City Hall. And so that was even more encouraging to me because when folks were using deficit perspectives of our students, it was like I was there and they didn't do that. They were respectful and they were kind and they were empowering each other. And so it can be actions and it can be other things. So this is one of my students, Emily, who was very much into theater. And so being able to support her in her aspirations of theater, despite a lot of patriarchal ideals that she has to deal with both at school and at home, was also really awesome to see her. She was Belle in that play. And so being involved in humanizing again our students and supporting them as much as we can was really one of the things that I felt was needed for me to feel like a person. The second is to find like-minded teachers. So this is again I can't point that guy, is Dr. Alamo, who's my, he was my high school history teacher. And I was really lucky to get him as my guiding teacher, thank you. As my guiding teacher, and that's my teaching partner, and these are some of my colleagues, that's all there. Princess, Alex, Chris, and Jimmy, and then Jonathan. And so again, just making sure that we're surrounding ourselves with people that are like-minded and that understand the struggles that our students are going with. And as you all will see, right, a lot of the times our colleagues at these schools have very horrible deficit perspectives of our students and reproduce them. And so making sure that we're able to just like have this hub, even if it's just once a month, is incredibly rejuvenating. And again, just helps you cope with all the horrible things that we hear, that our students have to go through, and that we have to like deal with the second time. And then this last one was celebrating student successes. And so just really embedding ourselves in our students' lives and just being there when they need us, like when it's like horrible and they need support, but also celebrating the things that they've accomplished. And so these are a couple of my students from last year. This is Carlos. He's like my pride and joy. Carlos is also an undocumented student, and he's actually here at UCLA this year as a freshman. My baby over there goes to UCR. And Leo is at Cal State LA. This is one of my new students from, I'm wearing the same dress, from Santee. And so she's not even she's like one of my babies, but she's not even my student. She like walked into my class and has been going ever since. And so I get a lot of students like that walking in. And so for me, that's like really, again, helpful, and it just helps me cope with all the trauma and all the stuff that's going on in school, to see that the students are thriving even though they have to deal with all of these other things, and just making sure that we're there for them as well. Like that has been some of the most powerful things that I feel like will definitely keep me in this for a really, really long time. And so I'm gonna read some of the quotes that my kids and others have said. So Jasmine said, "She's not even my teacher, she's my tia." So she's not my teacher, she's my aunt. And then one of my other students yesterday, I was a little bit late to class because the mom stopped me outside of Santee, and she was telling me about how her son Jose told her that I'm his motivational poster because like he hadn't had a teacher, right, that like resembled him. And that's something similar to what Carlos would say. So I'm a documenter like him. And so going through the entire process of having someone who is undocumented and can guide you through those processes of things that like most people have no idea of, the like paperwork, KB 540, and all these other things. It's just like empowering as someone who's gone through it, and also as like someone who needed the support to get there. And then the last one is Carlos' grandma from El Salvador. On his graduation, I didn't know her, but I had this like old lady run to me and she like hugged me, and she said, "Gracias por asegurarte que mi niño llegó a la universidad." So thank you for ensuring that my baby made it to the university. And so, like all of these things, I feel like we carry them, and it doesn't diminish the trauma that our students are facing, but it's really, really empowering and just sustaining to keep in mind that despite all these like fires that are happening, that our kids are amazing and that they're like fireproof, bulletproof, and super resilient. And I feel like that's what keeps teachers of color, like if they're able to do these three things, to like help heal the community through activism and action and empowerment, to recognize that our students need support and love both when they're struggling, but also when they're being awesome and resilient. And that's it. Thank you.